I'm Jason UFC, and today we have a story about Ciryl Gane is targeting a return in September of 2023. Wants a potential clash with Sergei Pavlovich. Okay, how about that? Okay, hold on, let's get that out of there. Former UFC interim heavyweight champion Ciryl Gane is inching closer to a return to the octagon after his title loss at UFC 285 versus John Jones. Ciryl Gane lost to John Jones via first round submission at UFC 285 earlier in 2023 for the vacant UFC heavyweight title belt. Ciryl Gane lost his second attempt at becoming undisputed UFC heavyweight champion after losing to Francis Ngannou last year. So Ciryl Gane has fought for the undisputed heavyweight championship twice now. He won the interim belt once. Ciryl Gane has kept quiet since a obviously very disappointing first round submission loss to John Jones, who was away from the octagon for 3 years. Ciryl Gane hasn't been booked for a return fight and is in an unusual spot at the top of the heavyweight division. He's still considered the number one, still ranked the number one contender in the UFC heavyweight division. But fans might not have to wait much longer for Ciryl Gane to return, and he is targeting a massive name for his combat fight. Ciryl Gane wants Sergei Pavlovich for the September 2023 matchup. During a recent interview, his coach gave an update on when fans can expect to see Ciryl Gane back in the octagon. September, Lopez said of Ciryl Gane's targeted return. Sergei Pavlovich would be a good opponent as well. Sergei Pavlovich could get a title shot for his next fight, but a matchup with Gane would be the next best thing for the surgeon Sergei Pavlovich. He recently defeated Curtis Blades by first round TKO in his first Sergei Pavlovich's first career UFC main event. It was scheduled for 5 rounds. He stopped Curtis Blades in the first round. Pavlovich has been a wrecking ball in the UFC heavyweight division as of late. He has won 6 straight fights, including knockout wins over Tai Tuivasa and Derek Lewis. Before the loss to Jones, Ciryl Gane earned the vacant title by also finishing Tai Tuivasa at UFC Paris last year. He won his first 10 fights overall before losses to Ngannou and John Jones. Okay, is there anything else we have to get in there? As the potential John Jones versus Stipe Miocic fight continues to be in, quote, flux, a matchup between Gane and Pavlovich could make sense for both sides. If they get booked against each other, fans can expect a stand-up war inside of the octagon. Yeah, I mean, still no words on when Jones versus Stipe Miocic is going to happen. When Jones defeated Ciryl Gane at UFC 285, for some unknown reason, the UFC jumped out the window super early, and they said they wanted to see John Jones fight Stipe Miocic at UFC 290 International Fight Week. But that fight's not going to happen. I don't know who turned that fight down, but it looks like the John Jones versus Stipe Miocic fight will most likely happen in New York City at MSG for the UFC card in New York in November. So that fight's going to happen in November. That's the number one contender match. I mean, I would have preferred to see, Pavlovich versus Stipe Miocic. I personally do not think Stipe Miocic should be the number one contender, but I'm an MMA casual. But, Stipe Miocic last fought, I think, 2 years ago. He got knocked out in the second round. Was it the second round or the first round? One of those 2 rounds by Francis Ngannou. So for Stipe Miocic to be knocked out in his last fight, for Stipe Miocic not to have a fight in 2 years, and for Stipe Miocic to still be the number one contender, it either says a lot about the UFC heavyweight contenders or it says a lot about the championship fights that we have seen being booked, right? Like, I don't know which one it is. Maybe it's more John Jones wanting to fight Stipe Miocic for his legacy than it is for the UFC, like, pushing Stipe Miocic. But either way, I still don't think that Stipe Miocic should be the number one contender. It looks like Sergei Pavlovich. If the fight with Stipe Miocic doesn't happen for some unknown reason, which I don't think it won't, Sergei Pavlovich is obviously the number one contender at the moment. But I expect, So the question is, does Sergei Pavlovich take the fight versus versus Ciryl Gane before John Jones fights Stipe Miocic, or does Sergei Pavlovich, does he have enough clout to sit back and say, no, I'll be the backup fighter for Jones versus Stipe Miocic? I don't know. And then the wild card in this would be Tom Aspinall. We haven't heard too much from Tom Aspinall since his knee injury last year versus Curtis Blades. So if Ciryl Gane doesn't get the Sergei Pavlovich fight because Sergei wants to be the backup fighter for Jones versus Stipe Miocic, I would like to see Ciryl Gane versus Tom Aspinall. I think that would be a good fight. That would be kind of a backup number one contender kind of a situation in a sense, right? But so that could be a pretty good fight. But let me know your opinion of this story. Who do you want to see